Warning, the following podcast is intended for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is advised. If you are sensitive to any content or subject matter in films, I recommend looking up this film on doesthedogdie.com. It is a user-based database of extensive content warnings for pretty much every film you can think of. It basically gives you a heads up to all the potentially triggering topics a movie might have. Check it out and take care of yourself. Welcome back to We Creeps. I'm your host, Evan Exhumed, and just like before, every week I summarize and review a different horror film for people who are a little too squeamish or easily spooked to watch them, but still really enjoy the plot and often end up looking them up on Wikipedia or Googling the ending explained. We, of course, welcome horror movie fans all the same. Even if you like New French Extremity, I don't know why you'd be here really, but, you're still welcome. We welcome everyone here. Today I will be covering a particularly gruesome horror film, which is the 2008 Martyrs. It stars Morhana Alouai, Mylene Jampanoy, Catherine Begin, Robert Topin, and Patricia Touslany. It is directed by Pascal Laguerre, and I don't do a lot of films that I don't like, but the purpose of this podcast is to give people the opportunity to not watch certain films if they don't want to, if they're too extreme. And this film is really extreme. It's filled with a lot of gore, a lot of violence against women, and it's just very famous. And I'm sure you've heard of it. If you've run in any horror circles, people talk about it. And I'm one of the few people that I know who just really don't like it. I feel that while it has really good bones and it has a really good basis for what could have been an amazing horror film, there's just too much violence and it's just gratuitous what it is really, and especially towards women specifically. So for me, it felt like the director was too insecure with a lot of his ideas, which were good, but he just felt like he needed to add something to make it stand out more or for people to get the message. With all of that said, let's go ahead and get started on the 2008 French horror film, Martyrs. The film immediately opens up with a young girl who has been clearly abused, escaping and running out of a warehouse. She's probably around 12 years old or so, and she is just sprinting for her life, and she successfully escapes, and we then cut to what appears to be a montage of sorts visualized through like old film, and it shows our main character Lucy, or at least one of our main characters. The little montage goes into sort of a documentary style. There is a man and he's explaining what they found in that warehouse, and it seems that Lucy was abused physically. No sexual assault, they make that very clear, but she was starved, dehydrated, etc. Lucy then meets the other main character, Anna, and it seems that they are bonding really quickly. You can see Lucy growing her hair back. Her hair had been shaved off, and just they seem to bond and really connect. And we then cut to a scene with the headmaster of the orphanage interviewing Anna with a police officer, asking about details of Lucy's kidnappers or anything that Lucy has told Anna. And so at that same time, a nurse comes in and says that Lucy is having an episode. So Anna runs over to her in her room, and it seems that Lucy has started cutting herself and she's bleeding all over in the bathtub. And so she asks her not to tell. As they both go to sleep, Lucy is haunted by hallucinations of a large, demonic, dark figure with long hair, and it seems to sort of follow her and ends up on top of her on her bed and screams at her. And then we jump 15 years later, and now we're in a nice middle class, beautiful house, and we are seeing a family. We got a middle-aged 50s or so husband. We have a wife. We have like about an 18-year-old son, maybe a 14-year-old daughter, and they're just having a good breakfast. The mom is working on some piping outside, I guess. She's, very handy, and the kids are fighting a little bit, and they're just having a nice little breakfast. And there is a ring at the doorbell, And the husband, father, gets up to go and check it out. And there is a woman with a double barrel shotgun who just fucking shoots him in the chest right after he opens the goddamn door. She comes in with a vengeance, literally, because this is Lucy. And then she fires one off at the mom, wounding her, but not fully killing her. She's pretty fucked up, though, to be clear. Lucy then encounters the 18-year-old son, pointing the gun at him and forcing him to sit down. She asks him, "How old are you?" And he says 18. And she says, "Do you know what your parents did?" And he just pauses for a moment, and Lucy turns away and looks a little upset because she knows she has to kill this young life. And then she fires a fucking shotgun blast into this dude's chest, killing him. She then finds the daughter who is hiding under the bed, and she jumps on top of that bed and starts firing into the mattress, which it does go through a little bit, but not all the way. So the young girl runs away, and then Lucy shoots her in the back, killing her. Lucy now has a bit of a breakdown. She begins to shake the wife that she just killed, shaking her, saying, "Why would you do this to me? How could you have done this to me?" Just really having a traumatic response here. She's crying, she's upset. And then we see someone in a car waiting by a phone booth, and it's Anna. And she runs to the phone booth as soon as it starts ringing, and it starts talking to Lucy. And Lucy's like, "It's them, I'm sure of it." And Anna is like, "Okay, we got to call the police." And Lucy's like, "Well, we can't really do that because I just killed the absolute fuck out of them." So Anna, being clearly distressed, asks her where the hell she is and heads right over. So Lucy is now laying on the couch inside the house, and she begins to hear something, like something has broken in. So she loads the shotgun, starts looking around, and then we see that demonic, weird-looking figure that we saw from her childhood who was on top of her. And she pulls out a knife and tries to chase it, saying, "Hey, I did it. I killed them. It was them." Almost like she's pleading to it. And at this point, I feel like it's very obvious that this is not a real creature, that this is all psychological. And so she starts being attacked by this figure of herself almost, and it begins to cut her. It takes the razor away, just slashing into her, stabbing her a bunch of times, and she hides in the closet and begins to have flashbacks of some of her torture. And she jumps out of the closet and is still slashed a bit by the monster. And she does make her way outside. And as she's running, she runs into Anna. She tells Anna that, quote, she, unquote, is in there. And Anna, I think, having been around Lucy long enough, knows that this is a figment of her imagination. And she goes in to check everything out in the house. And she finds all the dead bodies as well, but no crazy monster. Anna is clearly distraught. She almost throws up in the bathroom, but Lucy sits outside of it waiting for her. And they collect all of the bodies and put them in the bathroom. And Lucy shows Anna a picture proving that it was in fact them. So they embrace. Anna actually kisses Lucy at one point, which I totally forgot about. So I'm not sure if there's any romantic inklings between them, but that's never really fully explored. That said, Lucy looks at Anna and says, "Will I ever be free of this trauma, this PTSD, this suffering?" They end up spending the night, and Lucy begins to dream of some of her traumatic torture. And as she wakes up, she sees Anna outside starting to throw the bodies into the pit that the mother was doing plumbing in or something earlier when I said she was handy. And as Anna is cleaning up in the bathroom, she notices that the mother is still alive and begins screaming. She sort of starts to panic, but then Lucy comes in to take care of it. And as Anna is taking the young daughter's body to the pit, she hears Lucy start to scream, and Lucy is once again attacked by the PTSD monster. She begins stabbing her, slicing her again, and thankfully Lucy is able to get away and locks herself into the bedroom with Anna, and she screams at the monster, "I killed them, I even killed their kids, what do you want from me?" So this is obviously a very big metaphor showing that trauma doesn't just leave you. You can't really escape it in any sense, even if you are. to kill your abusers or, remedy a physical thing that might still exist that's upsetting you based on that trauma. So that is a really interesting part about this movie. And I feel like this is what I mean when I say this has really good bones. But what is to come is what really causes me to be upset with this movie. We then see a little flashback into Lucy's torture. Besides physical abuse, she was also force fed, but it seems like she is able to escape. So this is giving us the context for when she is running out at the very beginning of the movie. As she's escaping, she sees another girl screaming, trying to get out, and Lucy, of course, having to fend for herself, escapes. And we are now back in the present, and we can see that Lucy is feeling a lot of survivor's guilt and feeling responsible for that little girl not having been saved. Lucy wakes up out of her dream PTSD nightmare and starts to hear Anna shuffling around, and it appears that Anna has locked her in the room. There's 2 locks on the door, I guess. And Anna is picking up the mother, who I guess is still alive. I'm not sure. I could have sworn that she went in there and saw, but I don't know. So Anna is trying to help this mother woman escape. So it seems like Anna does not believe Lucy. And, the woman is saying, like, why would she do this? Blah, blah, blah. So this gives the audience, you and me, some sort of doubt that Lucy is actually telling the truth or that she's just correct at all in killing these people. So Lucy tackles Anna, it looks like she got out of that room, and begins to beat the mother with a hammer, killing her. And Anna is just, trying to get herself together, and Lucy starts screaming at her, throwing stuff around the house, saying, "You never believed me. Why don't you believe me? They did this to me, and you believe the doctors," and so on. And as Anna is trying to regain her composure, Lucy sees the PTSD demon and approaches it with a box cutter. And the demon comes up to her like kind of coyly, and they embrace. And as they are embracing and she's comforting this demon thing, it begins to slowly cut her wrists with the box cutter. In reality, we see Anna watching Lucy cut herself with the box cutter. And these are deep cuts. These are suicide cuts. And it's really sad to see the monster and Lucy having these moments together, because the monster is now calmed. It is no longer screaming. It looks at Lucy with a feeling of empathy and remorse. And it's just kind of sad to see, actually. Lucy ends up jumping out of a bottom story window, and as she gets up from the glass, she picks up a large piece and slits her throat, killing herself in front of Anna. And Anna is totally distraught. She's so upset. She's crying. It's raining really heavy. And this is only half of the movie. The next morning, Anna is on the phone with her mother. Apparently, they reconnected at some point, I guess. And she is scolding her for having been involved with Lucy, telling her that that girl always gets her to do crazy things. And as she's on the phone with her mom, she hears something. She hears like a rummaging or something. And so Anna goes to explore what that sound is. And the sound is coming from like a small little cabinet dresser thing. And she opens the doors and sees that there's a fucking tunnel. And she goes into the tunnel, and there are stairs that lead to a downstairs area in this fucking house. She finds a light and turns that shit on, and boom, underground torture facility, but kind of looks like an Apple store. So it's very clean and white. So now, without a shadow of a doubt, we know that Lucy was onto something. As she walks through the halls of this weird lab, she sees a bunch of pictures of young women who have been tortured, looking upwards, their eyes, pupils really dilated, and they're just like framed. She then finds like a little trap door that's locked, and she grabs the keys and opens it and finds someone inside. The trap door leads to a ladder that leads to a full open room, and there is this poor woman in there who is chained up. She is emaciated. Her skin is just so rough from all the, torture and beatings. And she has this like metal mask thing on her face. And so Anna helps her to get to above ground, gets to the house, and tries to take care of this poor woman. She ends up running a bath for her, and as she puts this poor woman in the bath, she begins to scream, but Anna, being an expert in this, comforts her. And as she tries to take off the mask thing, we can see that it has been nailed or like drilled into her. And so Anna, with like some sort of tool or something, is able to get it out, but we can see that it is hurting her as she's taking it out. And she is successfully able to get it off, but she's having a bad time. Anna heads back to Lucy's body and apologizes to it, saying, "I'm sorry that I didn't believe you." And as this is happening, the poor tortured woman begins to scream and freak out, and she is like cutting into herself, trying to kill herself the same way that Lucy did. And she runs away, and Anna begins to chase her, and then all of a sudden, boom, headshot. She gets shot in the fucking face, and this whole like squad of black coated men and women with guns enter the house. They ask her who she is. She explains a little bit of the situation, and they pull her by the hair down into the torture lab and handcuff her to one of the cabinets. And we then see these weird Secret Service MIB people throwing all of the bodies, including Lucy's, into that large pit that was made by the mom who was doing plumbing or something. A few hours later, the people come back and they set up a table with 2 chairs, and this older woman comes back, and she's known as Mademoiselle, and she sits down and sits Anna with her and begins to explain what the hell is going on here. Basically, there's some sort of weird secret society who has decided that they want to speak to God or something, and that young women are the most susceptible to seeing God when they have been tortured extensively. It turns them into sort of a martyr, and she shows examples of people who have supposedly seen God from having endured extreme amounts of pain. So basically, the reason that I torture young girls is so that they can see God and report what they find. So the next part is why I say fuck this movie and why I think it's just a gratuitous, stupid movie. The next 20 minutes or so of the film is just Anna being tortured. That's it. There's no plot. There's maybe a few moments where she begins to hear Lucy's voices while she's being tortured. But other than that, she's just tortured for almost 20 minutes, and that's it. After Anna has been completely broken emotionally and physically, they take her to a surgical room and then proceed to take off all of her skin except the parts around her face. She's then locked up in this state, kneeling with her hands above her head. We then get a little glimpse into the routine of the people who have been torturing her, and it seems very normal and benign to them, which sort of adds to the shock value and upset. And one of the people who torture her see her looking up and having that same face as all those other people who supposedly saw God or whatever it is. And we see from her perspective, she's seeing this really bright light, almost euphoric, and she is just dumbfounded by it. The torturer calls Mademoiselle, who then rushes over to communicate with Anna. Mademoiselle rushes to Anna, who is now in this like weird gel bath thing, and asks her, "Did you see it? Did you see heaven? What did you see?" And Anna whispers something that we as the audience do not hear. It then cuts to a bunch of old people showing up at the house, all members of this secret society cult thing. And one member gathers at the top of the staircase, explaining what happened. And he says that Mademoiselle is going to explain what this woman saw, Anna. And so he goes to talk to Mademoiselle, and he asks, "Hey, how did it go? You know, what happened? Was there proof?" And she says, "Oh yeah, for sure, there's proof." And she asks him, "Do you think you could imagine what life after death is like?" And he's like, "No, I don't think so." And she pulls out a gun and says, "Keep doubting," and then shoots herself in the fucking face. So whatever it is that Anna told her was either really great or really fucked up, and it caused her to kill herself, and we never really find out why. And the closing shot is Anna chilling in the gel or whatever, just looking euphoric, and then the movie fucking ends. So, like I said, I do not like this movie. I don't think that people should watch it, which is part of why I made this episode, so you didn't have to watch it. The fact that there's like 20 minutes of torture is just so gratuitous and just so stupid. And it's one of the reasons that I don't really like new French extremism, because most of the time it's just kind of beating women, torturing women, and then calling it edgy and art. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I'm not refined enough or, highbrow enough to get it. But it's just, to me, I feel like it's cheap. I feel like horror like this is just too easy. You could go onto Google and say things that upset people a ton, and you'd find like torture, beating women and children, torturing animals. And I feel like I could do that. I could just make a movie where it's just kicking a puppy for 30 minutes straight and then call it art. But I don't think that's necessary, and I think it's really gratuitous. And while this does have really good bones, so much of the torture, so much of the pain that we see could have been excluded or inferred. And I think that's just really why I don't recommend people watch this movie, and why I think this movie is super overrated and just not good. It's a very mediocre, okay movie that has gained a lot of fame, or infamy rather, because of how edgy and just gratuitous it is. I think without that, people would have probably seen this and not talked about it much. Maybe it would be like a cult classic. I guess it already kind of is, but it would just be less regarded. And I think the director knew that. I think that that's part of why he did it in this manner. And there are reasons that he made this film. I believe I read that he was suicidal at the time of writing this, and so it makes sense that it's a darker film, but to produce this, I don't know. It's just not for me. However, I do want to thank you for joining me on this episode. Please, please, please be sure to check out the Linktree or go to WeCreeps.com if you want to support the podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, whichever. And also, if you want to support directly, be sure to check out my Patreon or buy some merch at tpublic.com. With all that said, I hope you have a wonderful start to your week, and never forget to stay spooky out there.